Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Connecting Life podcast. I'm your host, Dianaboskma, and I'm here to help you connect the dots of life so that you can live your best life in a healthy and fulfilling way. Today, I'm talking with Matt Lawrence. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a neurodivergent life coach, and overall just a really cool human being. So, Matt, please tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Hello, everyone. Well, pressure's on now.
Yep.
About me, my name's Matt. Me and Diana actually met from Graham Nichols' Facebook group.
Yes.
I was originally studying neurolinguistic programming, NLP, and I wanted to meet up with people to practice some techniques that I'd learned, and I think Diana's quite experienced in these areas, so she messaged me and we met up on Zoom, like we are now, basically. And we just became friends after that. And we've had a few sessions, sort of coaching each other. You've given me some EFT, which has been wonderful.
Yep.
And I've given you some bit of NLP, but I've more recently gone on to do things like life coaching and CBT and even a bit of counselling here and there. I was originally a writer. I'll mention that the book I recently wrote at some point. I've had Diana's permission to mention that. So, and when I was about 29, 30, I retrained in psychology. And now I kind of combine the two. I write a bit about my experience of coaching people and psychology and living as a neurodivergent person, which is what we're going to talk about today. And I guess that's as much as I can say at the moment.
Cool. Well, as Matt already said, we will have a conversation about living with a neurodivergent brain. Now, Matt certainly has one, because he's told me about that, and I have got a couple of kids in my house that have that, and I have got a couple of friends that have a neurodivergent brain, and it's fascinating to see how every single person with a neurodivergent brain has a slightly different personality, because everybody in that sense it's interesting. Neurodivergent brain, yet all of them are unique, all of them are different, and that's like with everybody anyway, because we're all uniquely ourselves. So when you think about living with a neurodivergent brain, how's that been for you, Matt?
Well, it's been a very complex journey, is how I'd put it. I was actually diagnosed with, well, my official diagnosis is Asperger's syndrome, which is, it's kind of hard to explain what that is, but I heard someone refer to it as level 1 autism. And so it tends to be quite high functioning in terms of, so I know that a lot of the sort of Aspies, as we're called, sort of weren't given that much help at school or in education because we just didn't, like, we could function quite well in everyday life. And so we didn't need that much help, although at the same time I've met very few of us who did particularly well at school. Like, I underperformed quite majorly, did quite badly in my GCSEs and ended up going on to get 2 degrees once I'd kind of figured out my learning style. And so I was diagnosed 10 years ago, and I mean, before that I had no real idea about, I knew I was a bit different in some way, but I didn't really understand why. I've always felt quite nervous socially, and quite, like, I'll be sat in a group social situation just feeling anxious and nervous and like scared in case someone speaks to me because I don't know what I'm going to say. And I tend to zone out a lot, and so I'm always forcing myself to kind of concentrate, but through the sheer effort of concentrating I then end up zoning out and missing stuff, and it's kind of almost a vicious circle. But in terms of how my brain works, I mean, I think a lot of it is social. So, like, I'll be having a conversation with somebody. It's different one-on-one because I feel a lot more relaxed and I'm able to, like, read expressions with a bit more ease. Whereas if there's a lot of other people there, my brain's doing so many things, I just can't really process things. And then someone will maybe ask me a question and, like, I'll understand what they're saying, but I won't understand what they mean by it. It'd be like a simple question, and I'll kind of think, oh, I actually don't know what they want me to say. And then when I was a child, I had so many times when I'd maybe misunderstand and I'd say something silly and the whole room would laugh at me. And I had a few experiences like that, and I became very shy and very just nervous all the time. And because on the inside, I'm quite an outgoing person. Like, I mean, you'll know from the conversations we've had in the past, I'm quite chatty, quite jokey, and that got, I don't know, drained out of me, I suppose, and I became very reclusive and very shy. And it's only with the last few years I've managed to go on a bit of a journey of self-discovery and just find where that version of me went, because I don't feel comfortable being shy. It's just not really a natural thing for me. Like when I really get talking to people, I just don't shut up, as I'm demonstrating now. But yeah, it's just like just being comfortable with being me is a journey I'm on at the moment, because I just want to learn to chill and just learn to be authentic. And it's just very difficult after years of being scared, I suppose. And then at the same time, just learning how to manage the way I socialize with people. Like if I don't understand something, learning to be comfortable with just saying, oh, do you mind explaining what you mean by that? Or just if I'm nervous in a group setting, just learning how to, because I do a lot of what's called masking, which is just what it says on the tin. Basically, you're just kind of adapting your personality. And in my case, I was always just saying nothing and just getting by without being spoken to. And but that's quite unhealthy, because you're holding so much in. You're really repressing your emotions. And but yeah, it's not good for your mental health, because a lot of people with Asperger's become very depressed and very anxious. And I suppose you have to find ways of letting go of that repressed emotion. So I do things like meditating, and I go out for walks, and I just talking to people, talking to someone you trust. That's really amazing for letting it all out. But yeah, it's just kind of an ongoing journey of learning what works for you. So yeah, hope I've explained that.
No, I can totally relate to that. So I've got 2 kids, one with autism, who was too creative to get the Asperger's label, but other than that, fit into it. So that was a funny one as well. And then the one who diagnosed, that's usually with girls, and I just said, okay, cool, whatever, it doesn't matter. And the other one is autism and ADHD, and they're both incredibly good at passing. Is the label that we learned, as in that nobody catches on that they struggle at times, because they can just fit in and do it. So one of the things that we did is that I taught them intellectually how social convention works, and the rules are this is the reason why, blah 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 blah, so that they understood. Because some of the things make no sense. Like, why would you need to keep your hands above the table during mealtime? There's no real reason for that, but when you start looking into the history of it, you do. So those kind of things, we've talked about that, and then for them it makes sense, and then it's okay. And so it's been really understanding how their brain works, which is for both of them different, to be fair. They're like properly different people. They have completely different ways of dealing with things. One is more the quiet person. She would just go quiet when things get difficult, and the other one gets anxious and chatty, which then is like, oh, my brain's going to explode because she goes speed up, and so it's fascinating to deal with. But both of them really needed support. Both of them needed peace. So with the oldest, when she came out of school at 10, because school and her did not compute together. It just didn't work. Nothing worked there. She got just totally stressed out, said this thing, we're stopping school. Because when it's not working, there's no point. And both of them have been underperforming their whole lives, because they feel like they can't. They really have this weird feeling of that because they are neurodivergent, they shouldn't be smart, but they are. So it's a really funny thing. I've never told them that. I don't know what that is, where that came from, because this makes no sense. You can be smart. A lot of people are smart, so you can be too. So they're both quite smart cookies. They both do really cool things. But with the other one, so the ADHD and autism lady, she was never in school, and that benefited her a lot because she didn't have to do things. She wasn't pressured to perform in certain ways. She wasn't pressured to perform in groups. We did do the home ed group, but within the home ed group, it's always been really respectful to people because there's a lot of neurodivergent kids in home education. So that respect there has helped them so they could walk away when it became too much for a bit and all that. So we started home educating when the oldest was 10. So that's now 20 years ago. Well, no, 21 years ago. And it's been for both really beneficial to have that piece, to be able to walk away, to learn the things they wanted instead of being this whole pressure and being pressured into socializing. Because both love socializing, but on their terms. And I've also taught them both that when they need someone that, like my oldest is really good at either me or another friend, whoever's with her, that they are the designated person to help when the anxiety hits or whatever, when it becomes difficult. So she always has people. So literally before she goes somewhere, there's one person that she will go to when she needs help. And it's sometimes a friend of ours, it's sometimes me, it's just that it differs who's there. And that's been really good that she even has with some people a safe word for that, as she calls it, where they just need to take her outside so that she come down and then it all works out. The other one is still learning a bit on how that works for her with socializing, what she wants to do, because she finds socializing harder than the older one, which is also quite interesting. But they both do like socializing with people, but it works different. And the other thing is that I really had to teach both of them to use, as we call it, the autism card, because going with public transport is for both of them a nightmare because they expect the train to be on the platform it says on the sign, and they don't expect the sign to all of a sudden change and everybody changing. So it's all these kind of things. So they've learned that they can go to the staff and say, I have autism, I need help. And that works because that's something that I think is super important, that whatever the neurodivergent label is, it doesn't matter whether it's autism or anything else, but when you need help, to go to someone who can help you. And that was a tough one to teach them because they didn't want to be different, which is such a shame because different is cool in many ways. Because, variety is the spice of life. So, yeah.
Yeah, difference is cool. I think I do love, one thing I do love about the modern day, despite all of the problems in the world, is that this stuff has just become so normal now. And
Yeah.
because it's only now, 10 years later, that I'm actually becoming comfortable admitting sort of that I'm a bit different. And so when my book came out, that was actually when I went public about the way my brain works. And yeah, I mean, it's so interesting just hearing about taking your children out of school and things
Yeah.
like that, just letting them learn what they want to learn and not be forced to do certain things, and then learning to. I mean, I completely relate to what you said about the public transport thing and the timetable suddenly changing out of nowhere. And yeah, I mean learning to be kind of comfortable with that happening and then talking to the staff about it just so you can get more information. That's brilliant.
Mm.
So there's so much I wanted to reply to there, and I kind of just thought, okay, where do I start? I thought, okay, yeah,
Go for
well,
it.
yeah.
The floor is yours. So, what do you want to reply to? Bring it.
But to be fair, I think right at the beginning you said about like the kind of creativity and isn't necessarily associated with Asperger's, which was something that, although I'm diagnosed with Asperger's, I'm very creative. One of my strengths.
Yeah.
But I think I'm also a little bit on the ADHD side as well, which is probably where that comes from, I think. But yeah, I think, as we've talked about, every single case is different. And I think that's kind of where labels are not always helpful. Because I think ultimately human beings are just all different.
Yeah.
And we are at the stage now where everyone is categorized. And I don't know if I agree with that, really. I think it can be useful, but I don't know if I really, in my heart, agree with this many labels, because I think it's just like, I think we get a bit obsessed with it. Like I have conversations with friends and we're talking about different character traits. I'm just thinking it's just kind of being human, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
And autism is just to an extent, I think autism is kind of a response to the way the world is now. I mean,
Yes.
it's perfectly legitimate. Like autism is definitely a thing, but like I think to an extent we've had so much change in how we live our lives in the last 10, 20 years. Like
Mm.
our brains just haven't had a chance to adapt.
Hmm.
Because when you think about what ADHD is in particular, you know, restlessness and hyperactivity and inability to focus, that's an awful lot of people these days, whether they've got a
Yeah.
diagnosis or not.
Yeah.
And and so I kind of think labels are a little bit redundant sometimes, but I mean, I've got friends who have recently been diagnosed after a very long kind of time of waiting and having to go through assessments, and must be incredibly stressful having to have all that uncertainty and things. And it's, I don't know, I guess the obvious thing is like, could this thing be made easier? But of course it could, but then we'll probably be waiting a long time for that to be made easier. But yeah, I mean, I think maybe we could just find a way of just, I don't know, making society more inclusive, which it's going to be a bit more inclusive, but I don't think we need to label everyone.
No.
I think is the point I'm trying to make here.
Yeah.
I think it's just we get a bit obsessive about everyone needing to have a label, whereas I think we just need to say that's a person, they're different to me. Let's
Yeah.
just understand how they work and see how they want to be spoken to, and 'cause all it is
Mhm.
just understanding people, really.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. One of the things that my kids and I have every now and then talked about is how in a hunter-gatherer society nobody would care because they don't do labels. Everybody's just different, and everybody has the jobs that they do, and whatever suits whoever, that's the jobs they do. And together we keep each other alive. That's what it's about. And I think that's been the way we've lived for the majority of our existence in this world. And then, all the revolutions of, industrial and whatever happened. And I don't think that's benefited us as a species particularly well. I think a lot of things have been it's for financial and capitalism and all that, great. And, for a certain level of comfort, great. But I think our brains cannot keep track of that. They can't keep, they don't, they're not caught up with what the world is doing at all yet. I think that takes a lot longer than all the progress takes, because the progress can happen really fast. But for our brains to adapt to that, that's going to take time. So, yeah, that's where a lot of struggles come from, I think.
Yeah. Just whenever the floor is mine, I'm just kind of like, what do I say? um, yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, like we've been saying, the world really has just changed so quickly. And,
Yes.
but I mean, yeah, I try to look on the more positive side, because I mean, when I, when my book came out in the summer, I promised I wouldn't plug that endlessly, but like,
Okay.
I mean,
Nice.
yeah, I mean, just to explain to the
Hmm.
listeners what it was all about, I wrote it because it's a guide to socializing for people who feel like they can't do it at all, like the people who literally feel like they are starting from zero, which is where I was for a very long time. Like I think if there are any like autistic or neurodivergent people listening to this, a lot of them will be nodding their head when I say things like we get used to people giving us weird looks, like when we're just trying to function in our daily lives. Like you say something a bit silly in conversation, or you make a new, this is a common one for me, you make a new friend and after about a month they just ghost you. That's incredibly common. I
Uh-oh.
mean, I've had that even in the last couple of years when I've been, because I learned to socialize manually,
Hmm.
just off the back of, and it was partly determination and studying other people, but it was also just learning about psychology and the way the human mind works, and then just thinking, actually, I can do this with my hands, and I can ask people these questions, and I can make more eye contact, and then I started to do things like that, and I kind of worked it out as I went along, and after a
Yeah.
while, I realized that people were warming to me, and sort of because I work in a retail job, and that has been useful because I've just got endless opportunities to practice my social skills,
Mm.
and And that was kind of where the book came from, really, because a friend of mine wrote a little ebook over the summer, and I was talking to her about it, and I suddenly thought, well, hang on, why don't I do something like that? And because I've been doing a lot of social media content on sort of here, like improving your social skills, improving your communication skills, and like how to make more friends and things like that. And that's literally what the book is about. It's if you literally feel like you can't socialize to save your life, this is how you begin.
Yeah.
And I talked a little bit about my backstory, which is I mentioned earlier, and then said, okay, here's how you make eye contact. Here's how you hold yourself when you're facing someone. Here's how you ask people about themselves. Here's how you say hello to people. And it's only about 20 odd pages, and I managed to put it all in a really concise manner. And it's just because I know that there are people out there who feel like I did and how I still do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm still learning as I go.
Yeah.
And I mean, whenever I'm sat in group situations now, I'm always kind of thinking like, okay, how am I actually feeling now? Because only when I reflected on this stuff in the last couple of years, I thought, okay, because it's always been normal to me. I've never really thought about how my brain works. And
it's your brain,
so yeah, exactly. It's one of those things. I've always lived with it, so I've never really thought about how would I explain this to another person. But I mean, it is a bit strange when I think about it. I'm just sort of sat in a group setting and thinking, I don't even know when I'm meant to speak. Like I've got something to say, I don't know when I'm meant to say it. Like if there's a pause in conversation, is that my cue to speak, or is that person just going to say something else in a moment? I don't want to interrupt people. The amount that goes on in your mind when you don't really know what's going on, and it's very draining. Whereas when I'm one-on-one with somebody, it's a lot less draining because I'm just kind of focused on that one person, and I'm just kind of a bit more headspace to be able to read facial expressions and be able to listen to their tone and figure out what's going on in their mind, and it's exhausting. But that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah. To be honest,
yeah,
I'm verified neurotypical. And even I struggle with group settings at times. I'm a pretty social person. I'm quite outgoing. I love socializing. And there are these moments where I have this thing, they are talking, when is it my turn? Or when is there a long enough silence? Is someone actually thinking before saying something? So it's not that weird for people to have that, because when it's a group setting, you have to think about like 4, 5, 6, sometimes even more people. One-on-one, you don't, because you're literally just talking with this one person. And that's, I think, for everyone. I don't know, I hope that there will be comments about that on this video, but I think for everyone, a group setting has its challenges and a one-on-one is easier. I don't think that's necessarily, well, it is harder. I see that with my kids, but yeah, I think everybody has their moments where they have this thing of, what do I do? Which is kind of cool, because that means everybody can understand and relate to it. So
yeah, I do agree. I think there's a lot of overlap with, like, I meet a lot of introverts who have social anxiety who aren't necessarily like neurodivergent or autistic, and I tend to get on with them very well. And because I've always thought the thing about being autistic is we quite often have a bit of a radar, inverted commas, for other, because my best friend, who actually kind of introduced me to my own autism, he kind of said to me when I was diagnosed that he kind of could sense that I was like him. But then I also get that with just people who are just introverts, and because we just tend to click. I think there's a bit of overlap because, and I suppose the common ground is social anxiety. And introverts kind of get that side of things, but they maybe have a slightly easier time with other things like reading social cues. But then again, the thing like we've been talking about, if you're sat in a group situation, that's difficult for a lot of people, even if they aren't autistic. But I mean, like, I think I hear quite often people say that everyone's on the spectrum to an extent, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I'm not really sure what I would say on that front. But the thing is, I meet some people who are so neurotypical, they're just nowhere near the autistic spectrum. And I just think, I don't think everyone's on the spectrum. I think we're all just human, and autistic traits are just part of being human.
Yeah. I've had a conversation with a really good friend of mine, and he's like the most neurotypical person I know, yet he's got a couple of quirks. And it's this thing of what I think is it's about how many boxes you tick, whether you get the label or not. It's literally a box ticking exercise, because I've got a couple of things that fit on the spectrum. I've got a couple of things that fit on ADHD, but based on the way, well, when I was assessed on what was my issue, that became then complex PTSD. But then it was like, yeah, these boxes, they tick autism, ADHD, but also complex PTSD based on your history, da 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 da. So it was this whole thing of figuring out what the thing was, and then it was like, okay, it's complex PTSD, it's not the other stuff, so we're going to treat you this way. Because what that lady's perspective was, and that may be different for different therapists, was that she would treat someone who's neurotypical with complex PTSD way different than someone who's got autism or ADHD, because that's a different way of being. And that's I found interesting as well, because that took a couple of sessions to get that sorted. But it was really interesting when she was talking me through her process of why she does what she does. It's years ago now, but it was a really cool thing to experience. So, yeah. Yeah. So, is there anything that you find is really important to share with the viewers? Because we've been talking for about 20 minutes. So I'd like to see whether you have, because I know you've done your homework before our conversation. So please feel free to have a look at your sheet to see whether there's 1 or 2 points or whatever it is that you think is really important to share with the viewers.
Yes, actually, yeah. I just looked at my notes, and I was just like, yes, I need to mention this bit.
Cool.
So I think there's probably a bit of a stereotype with autism. I don't mean that necessarily in a bad way, just in terms of, you hear the word autism and you think, oh, this person is probably a bit like this. And that tends to be, a lot of autistic people have trouble with sensory issues like bright lights, loud noises, smells, even touch sometimes. I think because autistic children and autistic adults, I think, have very different experiences. Because when I was a child, I mean, it didn't help that I kind of lived out in the middle of nowhere for 5 years. And I then moved to like a small town when I was 10 or 11. And so, yeah, my childhood was kind of a bit varied in that sense in terms of how I processed life. But I was between the ages of up until the age of 10, I was very, very sensitive to loud noise and very, very sensitive to bright light and crowded places. And so I kind of remember, I think I went to like a birthday party or something when I was about 6. And I remember being very excited on the journey over there. And then we kind of got to the place, and it was like a bit of a disco and very loud, and there were lots of people, and I completely froze. And I can kind of, it's a very blurry memory, but I kind of remember a few people came and sat with me, and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I just couldn't speak. Like, I think I was with both my sisters. I don't know what had happened to them or whether they were with me. I was very young, so I don't remember. But yeah, I just remember completely freezing, and that was kind of a common theme whenever I was in like at loud places, and I just couldn't function. And I think as an adult, I'm not quite as bad. I don't know whether it's to do with brain development, whether like I've grown in resilience or something like that. Like my brain's just more developed and I'm a bit more resilient, and I just don't have as many issues as that. But I still don't enjoy crowded rooms at all. Like if I'm walking down the street and like a police car or an ambulance goes past with their siren blaring, I jump out of my skin. But like I then immediately consciously think, well, okay, that was a bit scary, but I'm okay, and like I can kind of just shrug it off. But I do have quite bad social anxiety. Like I don't like I quite like going out for a drink with friends, but a quiet pub is my favorite thing. I don't like nightclubs unless I'm well prepared, is all I'm going to say. Um, and it's weird things because, like, I'm a big football fan, and when I was a child, I did not like football stadiums because they were so loud. I mean, there's going to be people watching this, like friends and family, who know who I support, and they're going to be probably saying, "Well, your team doesn't make any noise anyway, so what are you worried about?" And I say, "Shut up." And no, like as an adult, I mean, I can't go to a football stadium unless I've maybe been to a pub first. And maybe I'm learning to kind of overcome that because I just have to be a bit chilled out and go with some trusted friends and things like that. But I still enjoy a day at the football. But yeah, it's just at the moment I'm just learning how to handle things in a more natural manner, I suppose. Because yeah,
Yeah.
sensory issues. I've got my glasses actually go dark when I'm outside, which is a
Nice.
lifesaver.
Mm.
I started wearing glasses when I was 24, and the first thing I asked about was transition lenses.
Mm.
They are so useful. I don't even think about like light problems anymore because I go outside and my glasses just go dark, and
Yeah.
unless I don't have my glasses with me for whatever reason, then that's about the only time when I get blinded by. If it's an overcast day, I still get blinded by natural light. It's very, it's funny, but it's also annoying. But yeah, I mean, sensory issues still a bit of a problem, but like they were more so when I was a child more than when I'm an adult. But like I feel very self-conscious when I'm in a crowded room as well, and that's something maybe I'll never grow out of that one. If I'm still like that at 34, then I might never grow out of it, but I can always hope. And I suppose another thing I could say about things I still like ways I've got of handling things as an adult that I still do. Things like I kind of need silence in order to process life. Um, if I'm completely alone, and I find pacing around very helpful because it really helps me to think clearly.
Yeah.
And like when I'm at work, I prefer tasks that involve moving around because then my brain seems to function better. I'm not quite sure
Mm-hmm.
why, but it can be difficult. Like if I'm because like you, I find it quite difficult to be still. I think we talked
Mm-hmm.
about that. I think we might have even talked about that off air as well.
Yeah.
But I find it very difficult to be still,
Yeah.
and like as soon as I'm able to move, I'm just sort of bounding around and full of energy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I guess it helps me to regulate. And if I can't do things like if I can't pace around and I can't have any silent time, I feel very. I don't know what the word is, but my head feels very, very kind of cloudy.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a bit sort of. I don't feel right,
Yeah.
and I find it hard to communicate that to people because I don't want
Mm-hmm.
people to think I'm weird. And because even now, I still occasionally, from like my mum or something, she'll be like, "Why are you doing that?" So I'll be like pacing around or something,
Mm-hmm.
or I might get easily frustrated with. I mean, my big thing is that if I'm peeling a boiled egg, people always laugh at this, but if I'm peeling a boiled egg, I get really frustrated with it because they never peel properly,
They
and
don't.
we agree on that one at least. And yeah, it's frustrating.
It can be. Yeah. I've learned how to make the shell of an egg so you know. So I literally crack it on all ends so that it comes off easier. Because when I just start at one point and then try to peel, it doesn't work well. So I've learned from a YouTube video at some point how to make an egg easier to peel, and I just said, "Cool, I'll do that," and it works. So there's something that you mentioned that made me think of a course that I did years ago. So I did on Coursera a course that was learning how to learn, and there were scientists talking in that, and they actually said that the brain works better when we move. So many of these scientists, when they have a thing that they want to resolve or an invention that they're working on, whatever, and they get stuck at some point, they don't sit there and wait until the solution comes. They go do something. Like one of the guys that was talking about that he goes for a run on the beach. Another one was talking about going for a walk. Another one was talking about going for a shower. Whatever they were all talking about, they were because it's years ago. But these three stuck with me. But there were other ones as well. Because the moment you do something else and you move, your subconscious keeps chewing around on the problem and finds the connections in your brain to get the solution for the problem. And I think that's not really used enough, and we should, because it's so good for human beings all around to do that. Because these guys, I don't know whether they were on the spectrum or not, because that was not discussed in the course at all. But for me, it works that way. For anybody that I know that I've talked to about this, they have this thing, yeah, moving is so good. Then I really find the solutions that I need. Then this works, then that works. So I don't know. I think it's an underused tool that we should be using a whole lot more. So yeah, we are. I don't know how long we've been talking, but definitely beyond 20 minutes for sure now. And I've really enjoyed it because it's been really cool. Also, seeing you in a different way than our normal friendship conversations has been really cool. Now, one more question that I have for you, and that is, what do people do when they want to contact you? Where do they find you? Because that'll be nice for them to know.
Well, I mean, I'm quite active on social media, particularly Instagram. Instagram and Facebook are both. You can find me at Matt Lawrence Coaching, and I'm also on LinkedIn. Just don't think they really do usernames on there, but if you just type in Matt Lawrence and maybe add in autism or neurodivergent, I'm quite active in the neurodivergent community on there. I do post a lot. My social media has got links to my website and things like that, so you can find contact details on there. Because I think I said before, and I didn't really want to give my email address out on there, but you can you can find it, and you can also find links to my book, which it's got quite a long title, but I'll say it. It's called Being Neurodivergent: A Simple Guide to Improving Your Social Skills and Making More Friends, and it is available as a Kindle copy on Amazon. So yeah, by all means, go and find that and follow me on Instagram and Facebook.
Cool. So what I will do, as always, is add the details that you just shared to the description of the video so that people can find you. I'll just find the links, or we'll figure it out. I'll get the links and then I'll put them there. Links to the book I'll put there as well, because they'll be useful as well. And then, last but not least, I want to tell you that I really enjoyed our conversation. It was really fun. And I hope we can do it again at some point. So thank you for joining me today. And this is it for today. So till next time, everyone.